There's a comet heading toward Jupiter right now that might not be a comet at all. 3i Atlas carries chemistry we've never seen before, and its trajectory points somewhere specific: Europa's frozen ocean. What if Earth wasn't the destination? What if we're watching the delivery of something alive to a moon next door, something that could eventually find its way back here? Tonight, we're following a seed ship to its target and tracing the long, dark path home. Stay until the end, because the most unsettling part isn't the arrival, is what happens millions of years after, when whatever grows in that alien ocean remembers where we are. If you're as captivated by these cosmic puzzles as I am, consider subscribing so you can follow along as this story develops. Leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what you think. Are we witnessing something unprecedented? Or is there more to 3i Atlas than we're being told? Part 1. The Europa Shock Theory. 3i Atlas is not aiming for us. Picture this: a frozen world orbiting Jupiter in silence. Beneath a crust of ancient ice, 15 kilometers thick, lies an ocean. Not a puddle, not a lake. An entire global ocean, twice the volume of all Earth's seas combined, kept liquid by the gravitational torture Jupiter inflicts on its moon, Europa. A world where no sunlight has touched water in billions of years. Now imagine something is coming for it. We've spent the last year watching 3i Atlas tear through our solar system. The third confirmed interstellar visitor we've ever detected. Not from here, not bound to our sun. A hyperbolic trajectory that screams one word: visitor. It passed its closest approach to the sun sometime around late October 2025, and conventional wisdom said it would just keep going, out into the darkness, another cosmic tourist snapping photos and leaving. But conventional wisdom didn't account for what happened next. Because 3i Atlas isn't leaving. Not yet. Its path, when you run the numbers, when you plot the orbital mechanics with enough precision, reveals something nobody wanted to say out loud at first. This thing is bending toward Jupiter, toward the Jovian system, toward those icy moons hanging in the radiation belts like frozen embryos waiting for something to wake them up. Scientists call it a comet. They have to. It has a coma. It outgasses. It behaves on the surface like every other dirty snowball we've catalogued. But the imaging data from space-based observatories tells a different story. The jets, the composition, the behaviour under scrutiny. This isn't your standard comet doing standard comet things. This is something else wearing a comet's face. Some researchers, the ones who speak quietly in the back rooms of conferences, are starting to use a different word. Not visitor, not tourist. Delivery mechanism. What if Earth was never the target? What if we've been sitting here, watching the skies, building our telescopes and satellites, convinced that any cosmic threat or gift would come for us, while all along the real destination was somewhere else? What if we're not the main character in this story? What if we're the background extra, the failed prototype, the rough draft that got crumpled up and tossed aside while the universe moved on to better things? The speculation centers on alignment. 3i Atlas's post-solar trajectory, if you extend it, if you follow the gravitational breadcrumbs, points toward the Jovian system with uncomfortable precision. Not a guarantee. Not a locked-in collision course. But close enough that people who model these things for a living are starting to lose sleep. Europa sits out there, a pristine laboratory. No contamination from Earth. No billion years of evolutionary baggage. Just clean ice, clean water, and energy from tidal flexing that could power chemistry we can't even imagine, if you were going. To seed life somewhere, if you wanted a blank slate with all the right ingredients, you'd pick Europa. You wouldn't pick Earth. Earth's crowded. Earth's messy. Earth already ran its experiment and got weird results. This is the shock theory. The uncomfortable possibility that 3i Atlas isn't heading home. It's heading to work. A delivery vehicle carrying something we don't yet understand to a location we've barely explored. And if that's true, if this hunk of ice and rock and whatever else is packed inside really is steering toward Europa, then every assumption we've made about our place in the cosmos just became obsolete. We thought first contact would be about us, radio signals, little green visitors, some kind of acknowledgement that Earth matters. But what if first contact is watching someone else get a package we didn't order? What if we're just witnesses to a transaction that has nothing to do with us? The agencies won't say it publicly yet. No confirmed mission target. No official statements about intentional steering. But the math doesn't lie. Trajectories don't have agendas, and 3i Atlas is going somewhere specific. What comes next depends on what it's carrying, whether that payload is biological, chemical, or something we don't have words for yet. Whether Europa's ocean is about to receive the most important delivery in the history of the solar system, whether Earth sitting here in the inner system is about to become irrelevant, or worse, whether we already are. The thought keeps some scientists awake at night, not the possibility of alien life. We've made peace with that. Statistically, life probably exists elsewhere, but the possibility that we were considered and rejected, that Earth was evaluated, found wanting, and passed over for a better candidate, that's the existential wound that doesn't heal. Being ignored hurts worse than being destroyed, and if 3i Atlas really is a seeder ship, if some intelligence calculated trajectories and packed payloads, and launched this thing across light years with Europa as the destination, then what does that say about their assessment of Earth? Did they look at us and see a biosphere too volatile, too contaminated, too far gone down evolutionary paths that led nowhere useful? Did they decide we were the beta test and now they're ready to launch the real product? These questions don't have comfortable answers, but they're coming, because 3i Atlas is on its way. Part 2. The Payload Hypothesis. What is 3i Atlas actually carrying? If 3i Atlas is more than a random icy rock, if it's actually built for a purpose, then composition matters. What you pack into an interstellar vessel determines what happens when it arrives. And the chemistry we're seeing, it's starting to make people very, very nervous. The James Webb Space Telescope got a good look, so did ground-based observatories coordinating their observations like a cosmic firing squad. What they found was a coma dominated by carbon dioxide, not water. Carbon dioxide, with a ratio of CO2 to water vapor among the highest ever recorded in any comet we've studied. That's not normal. Solar system comets are water-rich. They're melting snowballs that happen to have some other stuff mixed in. 3i Atlas is the opposite. It's a carbon dioxide factory with water as a side dish. Why does that matter? Because carbon dioxide, especially in combination with the other molecules detected, water vapor, carbon monoxide, carbonyl sulfide, water ice grains, dust, tells a story about where this thing has been. The outer layers of its nucleus have likely been processed by galactic cosmic rays for eons. Radiation bombardment over millions of years, maybe longer, creates chemistry. It polymerizes organics. It builds complex carbon chains. It generates the kind of prebiotic gunk that, under the right conditions, could bootstrap into something more interesting. This is where the speculation gets wild. But it's informed speculation, grounded in what we know about radiation chemistry and long-duration spaceflight at the molecular level. If you wanted to send biological building blocks across interstellar distances, you'd need to protect them. Carbon dioxide ice is a good radiation shield. A crust of polymerized organics, built up over time by cosmic ray exposure, is even better. You'd essentially freeze-pack your payload in its own protective shell, engineered by physics rather than machinery. Some researchers are floating the possibility, and it is just a possibility, no confirmation, that 3i Atlas could be carrying what they're calling cryo-vesicles. Frozen capsules of organic chemistry, or even primitive cellular structures, designed to survive the journey and activate when conditions change. Heat, pressure, liquid water. The kind of conditions you'd find if, say, a comet-like object plunged into an icy moon's subsurface ocean. Think of it like boot code. Software doesn't do anything sitting on a disk. It needs to be loaded into memory, executed, given the right environment to run. What if 3i Atlas is carrying frozen instructions? Chemistry that only activates when it hits the right temperature, the right solvent, the right energy gradients. A set of molecular dominoes waiting for the first push. This shifts the entire frame. 3i Atlas stops being a geological curiosity and becomes a potential seed ship. A vessel designed, or at least conditioned, to carry the building blocks of life, or something like life, from one star system to another. The chemistry we're seeing fits that profile uncomfortably well. High carbon dioxide, radiation-processed crust, volatile-rich interior, everything you'd need to keep a biological payload viable over deep time. The numbers are striking when you dig into them. That CO2 to water ratio isn't just high, it's anomalous. We're talking about measurements that place 3i Atlas in a category almost by itself. Yes, Some solar system comets show elevated carbon dioxide, but nothing at these levels, nothing this extreme. And when you combine that with the other detected molecules, the carbonyl sulfide, the complex organic signatures in the dust, you start to build a chemical profile that looks less like random comet and more like engineered package. Consider the radiation processing angle more carefully. Galactic cosmic rays don't just damage molecules, they create them. High-energy particles slam into simple ices, carbon dioxide, water, methane, and drive chemical reactions that wouldn't happen otherwise. Over millions of years in interstellar space, this builds up. You get amino acids, nuclear bases, sugar precursors, all the molecular components that life, at least Earth life, needs to get started. If 3I Atlas has been travelling for 1 million years, 10 million years, longer, its outer crust could be a library of prebiotic chemistry, a frozen catalogue of organic possibility. But let's be clear, there's no direct evidence of biological material, no DNA signatures, no confirmed cellular structures, no little frozen alien embryos floating around in there. All we have is chemistry that looks suspicious if you're inclined to be suspicious, and trajectory data that points somewhere very specific. The payload hypothesis remains exactly that, a hypothesis, a what-if scenario built on circumstantial evidence and uncomfortable coincidences. But the fact that it's even plausible, that the data allows for this interpretation, should make everyone pay attention. Because if 3I Atlas is carrying something, if it's more than just a comet, then what happens when it reaches its destination isn't just an astronomical event, it's a biological one, maybe even an intentional one, and if someone or something sent it, they had a reason. They picked a target, they packed a payload, they launched it into the void and waited. For how long? Thousands of years? Millions? Does it even matter to beings who think on those timescales? The cryovesical concept deserves more attention because it's actually grounded in real biochemistry. We know that certain molecules can survive freezing. We know that some primitive cells can enter dormancy states that last decades, centuries. Tardigrades do it. Bacterial spores do it. The question is whether you can scale that up, whether you can freeze complex organic structures or even simple protocells for millions of years and have them remain viable. The answer from laboratory studies is maybe, under the right conditions, with the right protective mechanisms, with enough redundancy. If you were engineering a seed ship, you wouldn't send one copy of your payload, you'd send billions, trillions, embed them throughout the nucleus, distributed storage, redundancy. Some will get destroyed by radiation, some will degrade. But if even 0.001% survive, if even a handful of viable packages make it to the target ocean and activate, that's enough. That's all you need. One successful replication event and you've seeded a world. We're about to find out what happens when the package arrives, or maybe we already are finding out and we just don't realize it yet. Part 3. Directed Panspermia models that match the data. Panspermia is an old idea, the notion that life, or its building blocks, can spread between worlds. Usually we think of it passively. A meteor impact on Mars blasts rock into space. Some of that rock over millions of years lands on Earth. Maybe it carries microbes. Maybe those microbes survive. Life spreads by accident, by cosmic billiards, by dumb luck. Directed panspermia is different. It's intentional. It requires intelligence. It requires planning. Someone, somewhere, decides to seed life on other worlds. Not by waiting for random impacts, but by engineering delivery mechanisms, by calculating trajectories, by building vessels that can survive interstellar transit and deliver their payload to specific targets. 2 frameworks dominate the theoretical literature. Framework A. Scattershot seeding. Send thousands, maybe millions of small objects in every direction. Some will hit habitable zones, some will survive, most will fail. It's a numbers game. You launch enough seeds and statistically some will take root. Framework B. Targeted seeding. Calculate your trajectory. Use gravitational assists. Time your launch. Deliver your payload to a specific moon, a specific ocean, a specific environment you've chosen, because it has the best chance of success. 3I Atlas, if it's a seeder, fits Framework B. Its hyperbolic orbit is fast. That's not an accident. Shorter transit times mean less exposure to radiation, less time for things to break down. Its chemical composition, that radiation-processed crust, suggests it's built for durability. for long-term survival. Exactly what you'd want if you were sending something precious across light years. Natural comets in our solar system behave predictably. As they approach the sun, they heat up. Water sublimates. They develop tails. Predictable, symmetrical outgassing driven by solar radiation. 3i Atlas doesn't quite follow that script. The patterns are there, but the details are off. The composition skews weird. The behavior under observation raises questions. Hypothesis: 3i Atlas is a stealth seeder, camouflaged as a comet to avoid drawing attention, or perhaps because that's simply the most efficient form factor for an interstellar delivery vehicle. Ice and rock. Simple, durable, unremarkable until you look closer. But inside, a hardened payload, protected by layers of cosmic ray-processed crust, designed to survive entry into a subsurface ocean and release its cargo. The delivery mechanics are the hard part. It's not enough to just send material. You need to ensure it lands, that it survives entry, that it finds a hospitable environment. Europa's ice shell is thick. 15 kilometers, maybe more. You'd need either a very specific impact trajectory, one that penetrates the ice without vaporizing your payload, or you'd need time, slow embedding, gradual descent through cracks and fissures over centuries. Either way, it's a gamble. Think about the physics of impact. 3i Atlas, if it hits Europa, would be traveling at tens of kilometers per second. That's enormous kinetic energy. Most of it converts to heat. Vaporization, plasma, anything biological on the surface gets sterilized instantly. But what if the payload isn't on the surface? What if it's deep inside, protected by layers of ice and rock that ablate during impact, carrying heat away, shielding the interior? What if the whole thing is designed to fragment on entry, scattering pieces across the ice, some of which survive and eventually work their way down through cracks and melt zones? Or maybe impact isn't the delivery method at all. Maybe 3i Atlas is designed for a near miss, a close approach that fragments it through tidal forces from Jupiter's gravity. Pieces scatter across Europa's orbital path. Over thousands of years, Europa sweeps them up. Soft landings, gentle accumulation, slow embedding into the ice. Eventually, geological timescales, some of that material works its way to the ocean interface, melts through, activates. The targeted seeding model requires solving enormous navigation challenges. You're launching from another star system. You don't have real-time telemetry, no course corrections once you're in deep space. You calculate the trajectory before launch, account for stellar motion, galactic rotation, gravitational perturbations from passing stars, and hope your math is good enough that millions of years later, your payload arrives where you intended. That level of precision seems impossible. But maybe it's not about precision. Maybe it's about probability. You don't need to hit Europa exactly. You just need to get close enough to the Jovian system that gravitational capture or orbital resonance does the rest. You design your trajectory to intersect Jupiter's orbit, let Jupiter's gravity bend the path, and accept whatever moon you end up near. Europa, Ganymede, Callisto, doesn't matter. They all have subsurface oceans. They're all viable targets. Probabilistic success versus grand gamble. For the senders, this could be one shot among thousands. They've seeded hundreds of star systems. Most fail. A few succeed. That's acceptable. The cost per seed is low enough, the potential payoff high enough, that even a 1% success rate justifies the investment. But it's a gamble with potentially enormous payoff. If even a tiny fraction of your seeded material takes hold, if it finds the right chemical environment, the right energy source, the right conditions to replicate and evolve, then you've just established a foothold in a new biosphere. You've started something, a new branch on the tree of life, a colony, an experiment, a backup plan. For whoever sent it, this could be a legacy project, a long odds bet played across millions of years. They don't need immediate results. They might not even be around to see the outcome. Maybe their civilization collapsed. Maybe they're extinct. But the seed gets planted. The experiment begins. And if it works, if life takes root on Europa, then the gamble paid off. The ethical implications are staggering. If this model is real, if 3i Atlas is part of a deliberate seeding program, then we're witnesses to an act of cosmic-scale bioengineering. And we have responsibilities. Do we interfere? Do we observe? Do we try to stop it? Do we even have the right to make that decision? International space law doesn't cover this. Planetary protection protocols assume human missions. Controlled scenarios, This is uncontrolled, external. We didn't launch it. We can't sterilize it. We can't prevent it from doing whatever it's going to do. Our only option is to watch, to document, to prepare for consequences we can't fully predict. These questions don't have easy answers, but they're coming, because 3i Atlas is on its way, and whether we're ready or not, whether we understand what's happening or not, the delivery proceeds. Part 4, the failed experiment angle. Is Earth a rejected trial? Imagine a workshop, cosmic in scale, where life engineers, beings with timescales we can't comprehend, seed worlds across the galaxy. They launch vessels, they wait, they observe results, and when outcomes don't match expectations, when a biosphere develops in ways they didn't intend, they move on. They redirect resources to new candidates, new blank slates, new attempts. What if Earth is one of the failures? What if we're the discarded prototype? This isn't mainstream science. It's speculative astrobiology mixed with existential horror. But it's worth considering, if only to understand what 3i Atlas might represent. Because if Earth's biosphere was itself seeded, if life here originated from some earlier Panspermia event, and if that event didn't produce the results the senders wanted, then it makes sense to try again elsewhere. Think about biochemical compatibility. Life on Earth uses left-handed amino acids and right-handed sugars. That's an arbitrary choice, but it's locked in. It's part of our molecular identity. What if Atlas baseline life, whatever that means, was supposed to develop differently? Different chirality, different molecular pathways, different early branching decisions at the chemical level. Earth could have diverged, evolved in directions the senders didn't anticipate or want, rendering us incompatible with their larger plans. The molecular handedness question is actually more profound than it sounds. There's no chemical reason why life should prefer left-handed amino acids. Right-handed versions work just as well in laboratory settings. But once a biosphere commits to one version, it's locked in. Everything builds on that foundation. Enzymes, proteins, metabolic pathways. You can't switch halfway through without breaking everything. If Earth life made that choice randomly, if it just happened to pick left-handed amino acids during the earlier stages of chemical evolution, and if that choice was wrong according to whoever designed the seeding protocol, then we're fundamentally incompatible. We can't be integrated into their larger project. We're a divergent branch that needs to be pruned or ignored, or maybe Earth was just too volatile, too many extinction events, too much surface chaos, asteroid impacts, supervolcano eruptions, climate swings, ice ages, mass die-offs every few 100 million years. Not a stable platform for the kind of long-term evolutionary projects someone might have in mind. Count them. The big 5 extinction events: Ordovician-Silurian, Late Devonian, Permian-Triassic, Triassic-Jurassic, Cretaceous-Paleogene. Each one wiped out 50% or more of species. The Permian event killed 96% of marine species. 96%. That's not a stable environment. That's a biological meat grinder. If you're running a long-term experiment, if you want to see what happens when life evolves undisturbed for billions of years, Earth is the wrong laboratory. Too many variables, too many disruptions. You set up your initial conditions, you walk away, you come back a billion years later, and everything's different because an asteroid hit, or a supervolcano exploded, or the climate flipped. Europa offers something Earth doesn't: stability. A subsurface ocean insulated from surface catastrophes. No asteroid impacts penetrating to the ocean floor. No atmospheric changes. No UV radiation sterilizing the surface. Just kilometers of ice providing protection, with tidal heating from Jupiter providing energy. It's a controlled environment, a lab, a place where you could run an experiment without external interference screwing it up. The ice shell is key, 15 kilometers thick. That's protection from everything. Asteroids can't punch through. Radiation gets absorbed. Solar flares don't matter. The ocean underneath is isolated, stable, unchanging over billions of years except for slow geological evolution. If you want to see what life does given perfect conditions and unlimited time, that's your laboratory. If you're an alien bioengineer and you've just watched Earth's biosphere stumble through 5 mass extinctions, develop tool-using apes who immediately start burning their own atmosphere and generally make a mess of things, you might decide to cut your losses. Move on, try again with a cleaner setup. This is the failed experiment angle. Earth becomes a relic, a discarded draft, a version that didn't work out. The implications are philosophically brutal. It means we're not special, not chosen, not the centre of anyone's attention except our own. It means our entire existence, everything we've built, everything we've thought and created and destroyed, might be cosmically irrelevant noise to whoever sent 3i Atlas. The existential wound here cuts deeper than most threats. Asteroid impacts are terrifying but impersonal. The universe doesn't care about us. We've made peace with that. But being evaluated and rejected, being looked at, assessed, and found wanting, that's different. That implies judgment. That implies we were given a chance and failed. That somewhere, in some cosmic filing system, there's a folder labelled Earth with a big red stamp, discontinued. Now, to be fair, there's zero biochemical evidence for any of this. No genetic signature mismatch. No molecular fingerprint suggesting Earth life came from somewhere else. The evolutionary history we can trace, going back billions of years, is consistent with purely terrestrial origins. Chemistry in tidal pools, RNA world hypotheses, gradual complexity building from simple replicators, standard abiogenesis, no alien intervention required. Scientists are understandably skeptical of external seeding hypotheses. Earth's biodiversity, its complexity, its evolutionary tree, all of it makes sense without invoking extraterrestrial sources. Occam's razor says go with the simpler explanation. Life arose here. Naturally. No help needed. The phylogenetic tree we've constructed, tracing back through billions of years of evolution, shows continuous ancestry. Every organism on Earth shares common molecular machinery. Same genetic code, same basic biochemistry, same cellular structures. If Earth life came from elsewhere, if we were seeded, we'd expect to see discontinuities, gaps, organisms with fundamentally different biochemistry appearing suddenly in the fossil record. We don't see that. But even so, even granting that Earth life is almost certainly homegrown, the possibility remains, the door stays open. Because if 3i Atlas really is a seeder, if it really is heading for Europa, then the model becomes real. Someone is doing this. Someone has the technology and the will to spread life across star systems, and if they're doing it now, they could have done it before, which raises the next terrifying question. If Europa gets seeded, if life takes root there, if it evolves, adapts, thrives in that alien ocean, what happens when it finds its way back? Part 5, the existential return path. Could seeded Europan life come here? Let's say it works. Let's say 3i Atlas delivers its payload. Let's say the chemistry activates in Europa's ocean. Molecules replicate. Complexity builds. Over millions of years, life takes hold. Not Earth life. Something else. Something adapted to crushing pressure, total darkness, chemosynthetic energy sources. Something that has never seen a sun. Could it come here? The question sounds absurd at first. Europa is far away. Its ocean is sealed under ice. Nothing gets in. Nothing gets out. But the solar system is not static. Objects move. Impacts happen. And on timescales of millions of years, improbable events become inevitable. Mechanism 1. Impact ejection. A large asteroid or comet hits Europa. The impact energy is enormous. Chunks of ice and water get blasted into space. Some of those chunks contain microbes, or spores, or frozen cells in suspended animation. They drift. They orbit. Over thousands or millions of years, gravitational perturbations from Jupiter and the other planets nudge some of those fragments into new trajectories. Eventually, statistically, some cross Earth's orbit. Some enter our atmosphere. Some survive re-entry and land. This isn't science fiction. We know Martian meteorites have reached Earth. We've found them. ALH 84001. Rocks blasted off Mars by impacts, drifting through space for millions of years, landing in Antarctica. If it can happen with Mars, it can happen with Europa. The physics are well understood. Impact events on airless bodies, or bodies with thin atmospheres, can eject material at velocities exceeding escape speed. Mars's escape velocity is about 5 kilometers per second. Some impacts deliver ejector at speeds twice that. Those rocks leave the Martian gravity well and enter heliocentric orbits. Then it's just a waiting game. Orbital mechanics, over millions of years, eventually bring some of those rocks to Earth. Europa's escape velocity is lower than Mars, only about 2 kilometers per second. That makes ejection easier. An impact that might not eject material from Mars could eject substantial chunks from Europa. And Europa's environment, that subsurface ocean, means any ejector could potentially carry liquid water, flash frozen during ejection, containing whatever organisms happen to be swimming nearby. Mechanism 2. Gravitational dynamics. Jupiter's gravity is powerful. It dominates the outer solar system, but it also creates chaotic zones where orbital mechanics get weird. Debris trails, resonance effects. Over long enough timescales, material from the Jovian system can get flung inward. Not often, not predictably, but it happens. Jupiter's Hill sphere, the region where its gravity dominates, extends millions of kilometers. Material within that sphere gets perturbed by Jupiter's gravity, by the gravity of the Galilean moons, by solar tides, by passing objects. Most of that material stays trapped, but some gets ejected, flung outward or inward, and once it's free of Jupiter's gravitational dominance, it's at the mercy of broader solar system dynamics. Run orbital simulations, start with 1 million particles scattered around Europa's orbit, evolve the system forward 10 million years, account for gravitational perturbations from all the planets, the Sun, even the larger asteroids. Some particles fall into Jupiter, some escape the solar system, but a small percentage, maybe 0.1%, 0.01%, end up crossing Earth's orbit. Given enough time, delivery is inevitable. Mechanism 3. Engineered return. This one's darker. If life on Europa doesn't just survive but evolves intelligence, or if intelligence was part of the payload from the beginning, dormant and waiting, then intentional return becomes possible. Probes, ships, controlled descent to Earth, not invasion, not necessarily. Maybe curiosity, maybe contamination by accident, maybe something else. This scenario requires Europa's ocean to not just support life, but support the evolution of technological intelligence. That's a much higher bar. Intelligence is expensive. It requires energy. It requires ecological complexity. It requires selection pressure favoring bigger brains. On Earth, intelligence evolved in response to social competition, tool use, language. Would those same pressures exist in Europa's ocean? Maybe. Maybe not. We don't know. But let's focus on the passive mechanisms, impact ejection and gravitational scattering, because those are inevitable, given enough time. The question isn't whether material from Europa could reach Earth. The question is whether anything alive could survive the journey. Space is lethal, vacuum, radiation, temperature extremes, cosmic rays shredding DNA. Most organisms would die instantly, but extremophiles exist, tardigrades, certain bacteria, organisms that can enter suspended states, shut down metabolism, wait. If Europan life is adapted to Europa's environment, already dealing with intense radiation from Jupiter's magnetosphere, already evolved for extreme conditions, it might have a shot. Tardigrades are the proof of concept, water bears, microscopic animals that can survive vacuum, radiation, temperatures near absolute zero, desiccation. They enter a state called cryptobiosis. Metabolism stops, biological time stops. They're essentially dead by conventional definitions, but rehydrate them, warm them up, and they wake up. Resume activity like nothing happened. If Europan life evolved similar capabilities, if the environment selected for organisms that can tolerate extreme dormancy, because the ocean occasionally freezes or gets disrupted, then those organisms might survive space transit. Frozen in ice, shielded from radiation by surrounding material, dormant for millions of years, and when that chunk of ice lands on Earth, melts, releases its contents into a lake or ocean, they wake up. The timescale matters. This isn't a next decade threat. This is millions of years, maybe tens of millions. The probability at any given moment is infinitesimal, but infinity is patient, and once the door is open, once life is established on Europa, the return path exists. Dormant, waiting. Run a Monte Carlo simulation, estimate impact frequency on Europa, estimate ejection velocity distributions, estimate survival rates for radiation exposure during transit, estimate atmospheric entry survival, estimate probability of landing somewhere on Earth where the organism could take hold, multiply all those probabilities together. The number you get is tiny, maybe 10 to the negative 15, maybe smaller, but it's not zero. And non-zero is all you need for an existential risk. Because if even one viable organism makes it back, if it carries biochemistry incompatible with Earth's biosphere, If it's invasive, aggressive, chemically toxic to our cells, we're dealing with a contamination scenario we have no immune response for, no evolutionary history with, no natural predators or competitors calibrated to fight it. This isn't an asteroid strike. Asteroids are physics problems. You see them coming, you calculate trajectories, you deflect or evacuate. This is biology, evolution, unpredictable, subtle, a slow invasion that might not even look like an invasion until it's too late. Imagine the scenario. A meteorite lands in a Siberian lake, 2050, 2060, whenever. Nobody notices. It's small. No crater. It melts. Water seeps into the lake. 6 months later, fish start dying. Strange microbial blooms. Water turns colours nobody's seen before. Scientists investigate, find organisms with biochemistry that doesn't match anything in Earth databases. Realise too late that it's spreading, adapting, competing with native microbes, winning. By the time we understand what's happening, it's in multiple water systems. Ocean currents carry it. Birds spread it. It's everywhere. And our ecosystems, built on 4 billion years of Earth biochemistry, can't cope. Food chains collapse. Fisheries fail. Agriculture becomes impossible in contaminated regions. We're dealing with a biological invasion from a biosphere that never evolved alongside ours, never learned to coexist, operates by different rules. Contrast this with conventional space threat narratives. Hollywood gives us alien armadas, Independence Day, War of the Worlds, visible threats, obvious enemies, but real cosmic threats might look like nothing at all. A spore, a cell, a chemical signature in a water sample that nobody notices until ecosystems start collapsing. The return path is remote, slow, speculative. But once Europa is seeded, once that ocean becomes a biosphere, the clock starts. And we're sitting here, in the inner solar system, right in the eventual path of anything that gets ejected. The door is ajar, and we don't know what's on the other side. We don't know if it's friendly, hostile, or indifferent. We don't know if it will even recognize us as life. We're just waiting, watching, hoping that if something does come back, we'll have enough warning to prepare. But preparation assumes understanding, and we don't understand. Not yet. Part 6. The Europa Ocean as an evolutionary accelerator. Close your eyes. Picture an ocean that has never seen light. 15 kilometers of ice above you. Pressure that would crush a submarine like a tin can. No photosynthesis. No sun-derived energy chains. Just chemistry. Just heat seeping up from a rocky core tortured by Jupiter's gravity. Just darkness so complete it becomes a physical presence. This is Europa's ocean, and it might be the perfect place to build something new. Icy moon oceans matter because they offer what Earth doesn't. Stability over geological time. Earth's surface is chaos. Continents drift. Climates swing. Asteroid impacts. Supervolcano eruptions. Ice ages. Every few 100 million years, something catastrophic resets the evolutionary board. Life survives, but it starts over. It adapts. It pivots, but it never gets uninterrupted time. Europa doesn't have that problem. The ocean has been there for billions of years. Conservative estimates suggest at least 3 billion years, maybe longer. The ice shell protects it from surface catastrophes. No UV radiation penetrating to sterilize microbes. No solar wind stripping away atmospheres. No day-night cycles imposing rhythm. Just stable, insulated, pressurized water with energy flowing from below. An incubator, a controlled environment, a biological reactor that never shuts down. Energy matters. Life needs energy. On Earth, most ecosystems run on sunlight. Photosynthesis captures solar radiation, converts it to chemical bonds, feeds everything else. Plants, algae, cyanobacteria, they're the base of the pyramid. But sunlight isn't the only option. Deep-sea hydrothermal vents prove that. Black smokers on Earth's ocean floors host entire ecosystems based on chemosynthesis. Bacteria metabolizing hydrogen sulfide, methane, other reduced compounds spewing from the crust. They don't need the sun. They build organic molecules from inorganic chemistry using geothermal energy. Europa has the same setup. Better, actually. Tidal heating from Jupiter's gravitational torque generates enormous heat in Europa's rocky mantle. Jupiter doesn't just pull on Europa. It squeezes it, flexes it, because Europa's orbit is slightly elliptical. That constant flexing generates friction. Friction generates heat. Billions of watts of thermal energy flowing through the mantle into the ocean. That heat drives hydrothermal circulation. Water seeps down through cracks in the seafloor, gets heated to hundreds of degrees, dissolves minerals from the rock, rises back into the ocean carrying chemical energy. Gradients form. Redox pairs. Electron donors and acceptors. Everything you need to power chemosynthetic metabolism. Hydrogen, methane, sulfur compounds, iron, dissolved gases, a chemical buffet. Now introduce fast-track evolution hypotheses in a stable, energy-rich environment with chemical gradients providing selection pressure. Evolution might accelerate. Not in terms of mutation rate, that's probably constant, but in terms of complexity accumulation. On Earth, evolution got interrupted. Mass extinctions pruned the tree, reset the clock. Complexity had to rebuild from whatever survived. Europa wouldn't have that. No mass extinctions, no asteroid-driven die-offs, no climate catastrophes, just continuous. Pressure to adapt, optimize, compete. Mutations accumulate without catastrophic resets, selection filters without wiping out entire lineages. Complexity builds incrementally, generation after generation for billions of years. Over millions of years, simple chemosynthetic microbes could give way to more complex forms. Multicellularity, specialization, motility, cell differentiation, tissues, organs. On Earth, multicellularity evolved independently multiple times. It's a convergent solution to ecological problems. Bigger organisms can do things small organisms can't, access different resources, defend against predators, move through environments that kill single cells. In Europa's ocean, those same selection pressures might drive similar innovations. But without light, without photosynthesis, the evolutionary paths would differ. No eyes, no visual systems. But maybe electroreceptors for detecting bioelectric fields. Lots of organisms on Earth use electroreception. Sharks, platypuses, electric fish. It works in water, it works in darkness. Maybe chemoreceptors sensitive to parts per billion concentrations of signaling molecules, tracking chemical plumes from hydrothermal vents, finding food, avoiding predators, communication through chemical signals, pheromones, a dark ocean full of invisible conversations happening in dissolved molecules, maybe echolocation. Bats use it, dolphins use it. Sound travels well in water, better than in air. An organism that can generate sounds and interpret echoes can navigate, hunt, build mental maps of its environment, all without ever seeing, maybe structures we don't have words for because we've never encountered them, organs for detecting magnetic fields, pressure sensors that can read ocean currents, biological accelerometers that track motion in 3 dimensions. Evolution is creative. Give it time and energy and selection pressure, and it builds solutions we haven't imagined. Brain-like structures aren't unique to surface life. They're solutions to information processing problems, and those problems exist anywhere organisms compete. If European life evolves predation, it evolves nervous systems. Predators need to track prey. Prey needs to evade predators. That's an arms race. Neural complexity increases on both sides. Eventually you get brains. Maybe small, maybe distributed, maybe fundamentally different from vertebrate brains, but functional. Capable of learning, memory, decision-making. This is dark ecological bootstrapping, life starting in total darkness and building complexity without any reference to Earth's playbook. No photosynthesis means no oxygen from photosynthesis. Europa's ocean is probably anoxic, low oxygen, maybe no oxygen. That changes everything. Earth's evolution got supercharged when oxygen appeared. Aerobic metabolism is efficient, produces lots of energy, allows large organisms. But anaerobic metabolism can work too. It's less efficient, produces less energy per glucose molecule, but it works. Earth had anaerobic ecosystems for billions of years before oxygen appeared. Fermentation, methanogenesis, sulfate reduction, complex ecosystems running on chemistry that doesn't need oxygen. European life might never develop oxygen-based metabolism, might never need it, might build complexity through sheer time and stable conditions, compensating for lower energy efficiency with billions of years of uninterrupted evolution. The timeline is the key. Alien bioengineers, if they exist, might operate on million-year cycles. For them, seeding Europa isn't a quarterly project. It's a legacy, a long-term investment. They launch the payload and wait. Maybe they check back in 1,000,000 years, 10 million. Maybe they don't. Maybe they've seeded 1,000 worlds and only expect 10 to succeed. But success on even one justifies the effort. Possible divergence. Europan life, even if seeded from the same source as Earth life, would evolve in radically different directions. Different selection pressures, different environmental constraints, different available niches. Over millions of years, the biochemistry could drift. The morphology could become unrecognizable. You might end up with something that shares a common ancestor with Earth life, biochemically speaking, but looks and functions nothing like it. Different proteins, different metabolic pathways, different cellular structures optimized for high pressure, low temperature, total darkness. Narrative tension. This could be the greatest evolutionary experiment ever conducted. A blank slate ocean, controlled conditions, seeded chemistry. Just add time and watch what emerges. For the seeders, it's a gamble. For us, it's a threat we can't yet quantify. But what about the humans managing our own space exploration? What do the institutions tasked with planetary protection think about all this? Part 7. The hidden battle in planetary protection agencies. Planetary protection sounds boring. It sounds like paperwork, committees, guidelines, the kind of bureaucratic machinery that makes your eyes glaze over. But right now, behind closed doors, people who run these systems are having very uncomfortable conversations. COSPAR, the Committee on Space Research, NASA's Office of Planetary Protection, the European Space Agency's equivalent divisions. These are the gatekeepers, the people who decide what level of sterilization your spacecraft needs before you send it to Mars, or Europa, or anywhere else we think might harbor life. They've developed a classification system, categories 1 through 5, each with specific protocols for contamination prevention. Category 1 is the easy stuff. Moon, Mercury, bodies where life is impossible, no protection needed. Category 2, mostly harmless targets with slightly elevated standards. Category 3, flyby or orbital missions to bodies of biological interest. Category 4, landers and rovers to those same bodies, much stricter. Sterilization, heat treatment, chemical cleaning, documentation of every component. Category 5 is the scary one. That's for sample return missions, bringing material back from potentially habitable bodies. The protocols are strict: containment, sterilization, quarantine, because the risk runs both ways. Forward contamination. We send Earth microbes to another world and accidentally seed it with our own biology. Backward contamination. We bring something back that doesn't play nice with Earth's biosphere. Apollo faced this. Astronauts returning from the moon went into quarantine. Not because anyone seriously thought the moon hosted life, but because we didn't know for certain. Better safe than sorry. The quarantine facility was extensive. 3 weeks of isolation, medical monitoring, testing. Only after we'd brought back enough lunar samples to be confident there was nothing alive did we relax the protocols. But 3i Atlas breaks the model. It's not a spacecraft we built. It's not a mission we can control. It's an uncontrolled variable entering the system from outside. If it carries exotic organics, if it delivers biological material to Europa, it violates every assumption behind existing frameworks. Because those frameworks were designed for human missions, for controlled scenarios, for situations where we're the actors. This is different. This is passive receipt of potentially biotic material from an external source. There's no category for that, no protocol, no established response. Do we try to intercept? Do we sterilize it somehow? Do we just observe and document? Nobody's written the rulebook because nobody expected this scenario. Rumour has it, and this is unconfirmed, that some scientists and officials are deeply worried, not publicly, not in press releases, but in internal memos, in closed sessions at conferences. The concern centres on cross-contamination in both directions. If 3i Atlas seeds Europa, that's forward contamination from an unknown source. We lose the ability to study Europa as a pristine environment. Any life we find there will never know if it was native or delivered. The scientific value of Europa as a natural laboratory gets compromised. But worse, if seeded Europan life eventually makes its way back to Earth, Through impact ejection or other mechanisms, that's backward contamination from a biosphere we didn't create and don't understand. Our planetary protection protocols assume we control the contamination source. We sterilize our spacecraft. We choose when and where to take samples. We can enforce quarantine, but with natural transfer, we have no control. Material arrives uninvited, no warning, no containment. Imagine the crisis scenario. A probe returns from Europa, maybe in 2040, maybe 2050. Some future mission designed to collect subsurface ocean samples and bring them home for analysis. Maybe the containment system works perfectly. Samples stay sealed. Everything gets studied in biosafety level 4 labs, maximum containment. But what if there's a leak? What if one seal fails? What if an organism smaller than our filters can catch slips through? Or worse, imagine natural transfer. A Europan meteorite, blasted off the moon by an impact drifting through space for 1 million years, finally landing in Siberia, or Antarctica, or the ocean. It melts, releases contents. Nobody knows it happened because nobody was watching for it. By the time we detect anomalous microbial activity, it's already spread. Agencies might face a choice: strict containment or moratoria, halt all missions to potentially seeded worlds, treat the entire Jovian system as a contamination zone, establish exclusion perimeters, no-fly zones. But that's politically and scientifically untenable. We want to explore. We need to explore. The public expects it. Funding depends on it. Congress or Parliament won't approve budgets for space exploration if we're telling them we can't actually go anywhere interesting. So the tension builds. Urgency versus inertia. Institutional caution versus scientific curiosity. The scientists want samples, want data, want to know if there's life in Europa's ocean. But the planetary protection officers are terrified of bringing something back that could devastate Earth's biosphere. Ethical questions pile up. Do we have the right to interfere with a seeding event, assuming 3I Atlas is one? If alien bioengineers sent it, do we respect their project? Or do we prioritize Earth's biosphere and try to prevent any potential return contamination? What if the seeded life becomes intelligent? Do we have obligations toward it? Rights? Protections? Do we make contact? Do we leave it alone? Do we study it? Exploit it? And here's the darker thought. Maybe agencies suppress concerns, not out of malice, but out of pragmatism. Public panic serves no one. If you announce that an interstellar object might be seeding alien life in our solar system, and that life could eventually contaminate Earth, what happens? Stock markets crash. Religious institutions fracture. Conspiracy theories metastasize. Social media explodes. Politicians demand action. Activists demand inaction. Everyone's an expert suddenly. Everyone has an opinion. Better to stay quiet. Monitor. Prepare behind the scenes. Hope nothing goes wrong. If it does go wrong, if contamination happens, deal with it then. Crisis management rather than crisis prevention. It's cynical, but it's also realistic. Institutions are built to manage risk, not to scare people. That tension between transparency and stability is a narrative goldmine, because the public deserves to know. Democratic societies function on informed consent. If there's a potential existential threat, citizens should be told, should have input on how to respond. But institutions know that public panic can be more dangerous than the threat itself. Misinformation spreads faster than facts. Fear drives irrational decisions. Sometimes secrecy protects. Where's the line? When does legitimate need to know become unethical concealment? These aren't easy questions, and 3I Atlas forces them into the open whether anyone's ready or not. Planetary protection frameworks are evolving. They have to, because 3I Atlas isn't the first interstellar object, and it won't be the last. Which raises the next question. Has this happened before? Part 8. Alternative seeder candidates. Has this happened before? Before 3I Atlas, we had 2 confirmed interstellar visitors, Oumuamua in 2017, 2I/Borisov in 2019, both hyperbolic trajectories, both from outside the solar system, both strange in their own ways. Oumuamua was the weird one, elongated, tumbling, reflecting light in ways that didn't match typical comets or asteroids, and it accelerated, slightly, without visible outgassing. The acceleration was tiny, measured in millimeters per second squared, but real. Measured. Confirmed across multiple observations. Scientists proposed explanations: outgassing too faint to detect visually, but still producing thrust. Radiation pressure on an unusually flat reflective surface acting like a light sail. Hydrogen ice sublimating invisibly, because hydrogen doesn't show up in typical spectroscopic observations. Each explanation had problems. None fit the data perfectly. Some people, not mainstream scientists but not complete cranks either, suggested it might be artificial. A probe, a light sail, something built. The hypothesis got attention because Avi Loeb from Harvard backed it. Not conclusively, but enough to say we shouldn't rule it out without more data. That caused controversy. Mainstream astrophysicists pushed back. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Oumuamua's behaviour, while odd, wasn't that odd. Natural explanations remained more probable. But the debate exposed something interesting. Our detection methods are biased. We look for what we expect. Comets with comet, asteroids with rocky surfaces. Anything that doesn't fit those templates gets classified as weird, but we don't have frameworks for recognizing artificial objects. If someone sent a probe through the solar system, would we know? Could we tell the difference between a weird natural object and a deliberately engineered one? Maybe not. 2I/Borisov was more conventional. It looked like a comet. It behaved like a comet. Outgassing, coma, tail. Chemical composition similar to solar system comets, but with variations suggesting different formation environment. Unremarkable, except for its interstellar origin. A confirmation that interstellar comets exist and occasionally wander through. But that's the key word. Occasionally. 3 objects detected in 8 years. Oumuamua in 2017, 2I/Borisov in 2019, 3I Atlas in 2025. That's a detection rate of roughly 1 every 2. 3 years. Sounds rare. But is it? Sky surveys before 2010 were less sensitive. Telescopes weren't optimized for detecting fast-moving faint objects on hyperbolic orbits. Pan-STARRS, the survey that found Oumuamua, only came online in 2010. Before that, we had less coverage, less sensitivity, slower response times. An interstellar object passing through might go completely unnoticed. Estimates suggest we miss most of them. Maybe 10 for every one we detect, maybe 100. The solar system is huge, the sky is vast. Even with modern surveys, we're only sampling a fraction of the space. Statistically, interstellar visitors might be common, passing through all the time, we just don't see them. If that's true, if interstellar objects cross the solar system regularly, then 3I Atlas isn't anomalous, it's expected. And if some fraction of those objects are seed ships, if directed panspermia is a common practice among advanced civilizations, then we're swimming in biology we don't recognize. Speculative simulation studies suggest exactly that. Astrophysical models show that small interstellar debris, comets, icy bodies, ejected from planetary systems during formation, should cross stellar neighborhoods regularly, especially early in galactic history, when stellar densities were higher and gravitational scattering more frequent. The solar system could have been pelted with interstellar objects throughout its history, billions of them, most passing through, some impacting, some delivering material. Now consider geological and paleobiological mysteries, the Cambrian explosion. 540 million years ago, life on Earth suddenly diversified. Complexity exploded. Hard-bodied organisms appeared in the fossil record seemingly overnight, geologically speaking, over maybe 10 million years, which is a blink. Mainstream science explains this through environmental changes, oxygen levels rising, predator-prey dynamics creating arms races, Hox genes enabling new body plans, ecological feedback loops. It makes sense, the evidence fits, but the timeline bothers some people. Why then? Why not earlier? Life existed for billions of years before the Cambrian. Why did complexity wait? Fringe hypotheses ask, what if there was an external trigger? What if interstellar material delivered genetic information or chemical catalysts that accelerated evolution? Not seeding life from scratch, Earth already had life, but introducing new biochemical tools, new genetic sequences, new evolutionary possibilities. Most scientists dismiss this. Earth's evolutionary history makes sense without invoking external sources. The Cambrian explosion is explainable through natural processes. Genetic studies show that the body plans appearing in the Cambrian were built from genes that already existed. No foreign DNA, no alien insertions, just existing genes repurposed in new ways. But the hypothesis persists. It persists because we can't rule it out with absolute certainty. Genetic evidence from 540 million years ago is sparse, degraded. We're reconstructing history from fragments. If interstellar material did deliver something, if it integrated into Earth's biosphere subtly, we might not detect it now. The signature could be diluted, overwritten by billions of years of subsequent evolution. If that's true, if Earth's biosphere was seeded or reseeded multiple times over eons, then life here is a palimpsest. Layers written over layers, each interstellar delivery event adding new chemistry, new information, new possibilities. 3I Atlas wouldn't be unique. It would be the latest in a long series. One more delivery in a process that's been ongoing for billions of years. But evidence is sparse. Cosmic dust erodes. Geological recycling churns the crust. Plate tectonics subduct seafloor. Volcanism resurfaces continents. Interstellar origin signatures get diluted over billions of years. Even if seeding events happened, even if meteorites carrying alien biochemistry landed regularly, proving it would require finding molecular fingerprints that survived intact. And those fingerprints, if they exist, are buried under eons of terrestrial chemistry. Alternative hypothesis. Maybe interstellar comets simply sample broader chemical diversity than solar system comets. What looks strange to us? That high carbon dioxide ratio in 3I Atlas, those organic crusts, might be normal elsewhere. Our baseline is biased. We've only studied comets born in our solar system, formed from the same protoplanetary disk, same starting chemistry. Interstellar comets come from different stellar environments, different metallicity, different radiation fields, different formation temperatures. Of course, they look different. This reframes 3I Atlas not as a unique freak, but as part of a hidden interstellar ecosystem. Objects drifting between stars carrying chemistry from one system to another, occasionally interacting with planets and moons. A cosmic web of material exchange happening constantly, invisibly, over galactic timescales. If that's the case, then 3I Atlas is just one thread in a much larger tapestry. And Earth, sitting here in the Milky Way suburbs, has been part of that tapestry all along. We just didn't notice because we weren't looking. We assumed we were isolated, special, unique. But maybe we're just one node in a network that spans the galaxy, receiving packages we didn't order, sending packages we don't know about through impact ejection. Part of a system we barely understand. But what if it's not passive? What if 3I Atlas isn't just drifting? What if it's being steered? Part 9. The megastructure. Whisper are Atlas's jet's guidance systems. Comets outgas. That's what they do. As they approach the sun, solar radiation heats their surface. Ice sublimates, gas and dust jet into space. It's random, chaotic. Driven by surface features, cracks, pockets of volatile ice rotating in and out of sunlight. There's no pattern, no rhythm, just irregular bursts as different parts of the nucleus heat up and cool down. Except 3I Atlas might have a rhythm. Reports from media outlets citing speculations from fringe but mathematically literate theorists describe a heartbeat-like brightness cycle. Approximately 16.16 hours. Repeating. Consistent over multiple observation periods. Not the irregular flickering you'd expect from random outgassing, but something more structured, more periodic, like a clock. Why is that strange? Because comets don't usually do that. Rotation causes brightness variation, sure, as different surfaces reflect light. If a comet has an elongated shape, you see brightness peaks when the long axis points toward you, dips when it rotates edge-on. But that's gentle, sinusoidal. 3I Atlas shows sharper variations, peaks at regular intervals, like something turning on and off, periodic jetting, outgassing events that recur with clock-like regularity. That's uncommon, suspicious. It suggests either a very unusual surface structure, with volatiles distributed in perfect symmetry, or something else, something controlled. One model suggests low-thrust navigation. In spacecraft engineering, you can nudge an object's orbit using gentle, sustained thrust. Ion propulsion, gas jets, small forces applied over long durations. You don't need big engines, just patience and precision. change velocity by meters per second over months or years, adjust trajectory by fractions of a degree. Over interstellar distances, those tiny adjustments add up. If 3I Atlas's jets aren't random, if they're positioned symmetrically and firing periodically, they could function as a navigation system. Tiny course corrections, adjusting trajectory toward a specific target, Europa, or maybe Ganymede, which also has a subsurface ocean, or Enceladus at Saturn, another candidate, or some other icy moon we're not even thinking about yet. The thrust wouldn't need to be large. Comet nucleus masses are small, a few billion kilograms. A jet producing even a few newtons of thrust sustained over months could change velocity significantly. And if those jets fire periodically, timed to rotation, you get directional control. Fire when a specific surface faces the desired thrust direction. Over and over, rotation becomes your gimbal. Some in fringe communities point to what they call tripoint symmetry, multiple jets appearing at roughly 120-degree intervals around the nucleus, revisited over several rotation periods, as if someone placed them there, as if they're nozzles, not cracks. Engineered features designed to produce thrust in specific directions, but let's pump the brakes. Natural explanations exist, and they're strong. Mainstream astrophysicists argue the jets are exactly what they look like, dust and gas outbursts from solar heating. Observations confirm that 3I Atlas looks and behaves like a comet. The European Space Agency and other institutions have stated this explicitly. It has a coma. It has a tail formed by solar wind and radiation pressure. It follows predictable outgassing patterns as it approaches and recedes from the Sun. The periodic brightness variations could be explained by irregular shape combined with specific volatile distribution. If one side of the nucleus has more carbon dioxide ice, it outgasses more strongly when that side faces the Sun. Rotation brings that side around every 16.16 hours. Brightness peaks. Simple. No need to invoke guidance systems. So why the speculation? Because the same data can support multiple interpretations. If you're predisposed to think 3I Atlas is natural, the jets look natural. If you're predisposed to think it might be engineered, the jets look artificial. Confirmation bias runs both ways. We see what we expect to see, or what we want to see. Here's the tension. We don't have close-up imagery. No spacecraft has approached 3I Atlas. Everything we know comes from telescopes millions of kilometers away. We're watching pixels, interpreting light curves, fitting models to sparse data, making educated guesses based on incomplete information. And in that ambiguity, speculation thrives. What would it take to know for sure? A flyby mission, a probe with cameras, spectrometers, mass sensors. Get within a few hundred kilometers, image the nucleus directly, map the surface, identify jet sources, measure chemical composition in situ. Determine if those jets are coming from random cracks or specific engineered nozzles. But we don't have that. We won't have that. 3I Atlas is moving too fast. By the time we could launch an intercept mission, it would be gone. Past Jupiter, heading out of the solar system, lost to darkness. Our window for detailed observation is narrow, closing. We get what we get from telescopes and that's it. Ask yourself, what if we're witnessing the first known interstellar probe disguised as a comet? A cosmic Trojan horse, designed to look unremarkable, to pass through solar system defenses if any exist, without triggering alarms, to deliver its payload quietly while everyone assumes it's just another icy rock from the void. That's the narrative hook. The possibility, however remote, that we're being played, that 3I Atlas is smarter than it looks, that someone, somewhere, launched this thing knowing we'd classify it as natural, knowing we'd dismiss speculation as conspiracy theory, knowing we'd do exactly what we're doing, watch it, catalogue it, move on. But even if the jets are natural, even if every skeptical scientist is right, and this is just a weird comet with unusual chemistry, the fact remains, 3I Atlas is heading toward Jupiter, and whether it's guided or drifting, whether it's engineered or natural, the outcome might be the same. Payload delivery to Europa, seeding event, new biosphere. Which brings us to the conspiracy layer, because if 3I Atlas really is significant, if it really could deliver alien biology to Europa, would governments tell us? Or would they act in secret? Part 10. The conspiracy layer, black site missions toward 3I Atlas. Picture a classified launch, middle of the night. Remote facility somewhere in Kazakhstan or French Guiana. No press, no public announcement, no satellite trackers notified. A rocket lifts off carrying a small, fast probe designed for one purpose: intercept an interstellar object before it reaches the Jovian system. Analyze it, sample it, maybe even redirect it, and never tell anyone. This is rumour territory. Unconfirmed, speculative, the kind of thing discussed on fringe forums in encrypted chat rooms by people who claim insider knowledge but provide no proof. But the forums are buzzing, communities tracking orbital elements, launch windows, telemetry gaps, claim that 2 major spacefaring nations launched probes aimed at 3I Atlas, high-velocity trajectories, nuclear or solar electric propulsion, minimal radar cross-section, launched under cover stories, deep space tests, experimental navigation, classified defense projects. Why such secrecy might exist? Accessing an interstellar object, especially one suspected of carrying biological material, could provide strategic advantage. Early detection of alien technology or biology, first mover control of potential payload, scientific bragging rights in the new space race, or precautionary containment. If 3I Atlas really is a threat, better to intercept it far from Earth, far from populated moons, before it delivers anything. Sterilize it, vaporize it, redirect it out of the solar system. Problem solved. Hypothesized probe profiles, small spacecraft, maybe a few hundred kilograms, high delta-V capability, meaning large velocity changes possible. Chemical propulsion for initial boost, then ion drives, or nuclear electric propulsion for sustained acceleration. Minimal public emissions, no easily observable exhaust plume. Launched during optimal windows when Earth's orbit aligned with intercept opportunities. Trajectory designed to match 3I Atlas's hyperbolic path. Rendezvous at specific coordinates. Conduct flyby or sample collection, then escape or impact depending on mission goals. Orbital evidence, or what proponents claim is evidence. Micro-perturbations in 3I Atlas's trajectory. Deviations from pure gravitational path measured in meters per second. Too small to be natural gravitational interactions, too consistent to be measurement error. Offered as indirect evidence of momentum transfer from probe interactions. Close flybys that exchange momentum, maybe even physical contact. Sample scoops, harpoons, dust collectors. But no peer-reviewed data confirms this. No official telemetry, no press releases from space agencies, just spreadsheets on forums, graphs, with unlabeled axes, claims without sources, the kind of evidence that convinces people who want to be convinced and persuades nobody else. Intelligence community motivation makes sense if you squint. Control of extraterrestrial biology could reshape geopolitics. Imagine being the first nation to decode alien biochemistry, to understand how life can be engineered and delivered across star systems, to reverse engineer biological technologies we don't have, to develop new materials, new medicines, new agricultural methods based on alien cellular machinery. That's leverage, that's power, that's the kind of advantage nations build militaries to protect. Even if 3I Atlas carries nothing biological, even if it's just unusual chemistry, getting samples first means scientific dominance. Publications, patents, Nobel Prizes, institutional prestige. Universities and research institutes compete viciously for discoveries. Nations even more so. Being second is being forgotten. Or maybe the motivation is defensive. If 3I Atlas really is seeding Europa, if that creates potential for backward contamination to Earth, then intercepting it becomes a matter of planetary defense. Not against kinetic impact, but against biological invasion. Sterilize the payload before it reaches Europa. Prevent contamination. Protect Earth's biosphere from unknown alien biochemistry. That's a legitimate security concern. Why mainstream scientists discount the rumours entirely. No formal mission announcements. NASA's public schedule shows nothing. ESA's launch manifest has no mysterious gaps. Roscosmos, CNSA, same story. Budget allocations are public for most democratic space programs. Black budgets exist, but they're for military satellites, not interstellar probes. And 3I Atlas is too far. Too fast. Intercept missions require years of planning. You can't launch on short notice. No infrared signatures from high-velocity launches detected by monitoring satellites. Every rocket launch produces heat, lots of it. Infrared detection satellites, operated by multiple nations for missile early warning, would see a launch, even from remote sites, even classified ones. No anomalous launches reported during windows that would enable 3I Atlas intercept. And agencies, NASA, ESA, have stated repeatedly that 3I Atlas is a natural comet, nothing more. Observations match comet behavior. Chemistry fits expectations for interstellar objects. No evidence of artificial structures. No anomalous signals, just a comet doing comet things. So why do the conspiracy theories persist? Because secrecy breeds suspicion. Because governments have lied about space programs before. U-2 flights, Corona spy satellites, space shuttle military missions, all classified, all denied publicly until decades later when declassification revealed the truth. People remember, people extrapolate, and because the stakes, if 3I Atlas is what some think it is, are high enough to justify black site operations. If alien biology exists, if it's accessible, if controlling it provides advantage, then of course nations would pursue it secretly. Denials mean nothing. Lack of public evidence means nothing. Absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. Psychology of secrecy matters here. Humans fear the unknown. We construct narratives to make sense of ambiguity. When institutions won't give us answers, when data remains classified or unavailable, we fill gaps with speculation. Sometimes that speculation is wrong, paranoid, unfounded. Sometimes it's closer to the truth than official statements. History provides examples of both. Morality play. Is humanity ready to intercept a potential seed ship? Should we? Do we have the right to interfere with a cosmic-scale biological experiment? If alien bioengineers spent millions of years planning this, if they calculated trajectories and packed payloads and launched 3I Atlas with specific goals, do we have the authority to sabotage that, to sterilize their work, to prevent their experiment from proceeding? These aren't just strategic questions, they're ethical ones, philosophical ones, and nobody's asking them publicly because officially 3I Atlas is just a comet. Nothing to worry about. Move along. But the cosmos doesn't stop with 3I Atlas. Zoom out. Look at the broader picture. Other phenomena, other anomalies, other hints that the universe is stranger than we're ready to accept. Part 11. December 2025. Gravitational wave. Mystery. The rogue spike event. Gravitational wave detectors hum in the darkness. LIGO in Louisiana and Washington State. Virgo in Italy. CAGRA in Japan. Massive instruments. Kilometers-long laser interferometers. Listening for ripples in space-time caused by colliding black holes. Merging neutron stars. Other catastrophic cosmic events. Most signals fit known templates. Binary and spirals spiraling inward. Frequency increasing. Amplitude growing. Then merger. Ring down. Predictable waveforms matching general relativity's predictions. But recently, December 2025, a signal appeared that didn't match anything in the catalogue. Dubbed the rogue spike event. Brief, intense, maybe half a second duration, wrong shape. Frequency evolution didn't follow standard in-spiral patterns. Amplitude spiked suddenly without the gradual build-up you expect from orbital decay. Just appeared, peaked, vanished. Standard explanations get floated immediately. Instrumental glitch. Seismic event near one of the detectors creating noise that mimics gravitational waves. Cosmic ray hitting sensitive optics. Lightning strike. Earthquake. Calibration error. Detectors are sensitive to everything. Trucks driving past. Ocean waves. Earthquakes on the other side of the planet. Teams spend months ruling out terrestrial noise before confirming astrophysical sources. The rogue spike went through preliminary analysis. No obvious terrestrial source identified appeared in multiple detectors with appropriate time delays for signal propagation. That rules out local glitches. If it was noise, it would appear at random times in each detector. Correlated signals suggest real gravitational waves, but the waveform doesn't fit models, not black hole merger. Those produce characteristic chirps, not neutron star merger. Those have different frequency evolution, and often produce electromagnetic counterparts we can detect with telescopes. None found. Not supernova core collapse. Those produce longer duration signals with different characteristics. Nothing matches. So what else? Exotic possibilities. Disruptive dark matter clump. If dark matter can clump densely enough, gravitationally interact strongly enough, maybe it produces detectable space-time distortions. Pure speculation. No evidence dark matter clumps like that. But gravitational wave astronomy is new. We've only been listening for a decade. Maybe there are sources we haven't imagined. Exotic compact object, something between black hole and neutron star, quark star, strange star, grav star, objects predicted by some theoretical models but never confirmed. Maybe one existed. Maybe it underwent some catastrophic event. Maybe that's what we detected. Or if you're willing to entertain speculative hypotheses, advanced propulsion. Space-time distortions caused by technology we can't yet imagine. If a civilization has mastered gravity manipulation, if they can warp space-time for faster-than-light travel or other purposes, that would produce gravitational waves. Maybe the rogue spike was a ship activating its drive. Maybe someone just jumped to warp nearby. Astronomically speaking, connect this to 3I Atlas. If there are unknown cosmic objects or technologies generating gravitational effects we don't understand, maybe 3I Atlas is one of many unknowns. Part of a broader class of interstellar actors operating with physics we haven't decoded yet. Objects that look natural but aren't. Technologies disguised as natural phenomena. A hidden layer of cosmic activity we're only beginning to detect. The larger question, how much of the cosmos is invisible to us because our detection tools are tuned only for expected phenomena? We build gravitational wave detectors to find black holes and neutron stars because we know they exist. General relativity predicts their signals. We know what to look for, but what about things we haven't predicted? Things that don't fit our models, signals outside our search templates? We might be swimming in gravitational wave sources we can't recognize. Glitches we discard as noise might be real signals from unknown sources. The cosmos might be far noisier than we think, but we're filtering aggressively, keeping only signals that match templates, discarding everything else. What if we're throwing away the most interesting data? Implications for directed panspermia? Perhaps advanced civilizations use physics we're only beginning to glimpse. Propulsion mechanisms that create gravitational signatures, exotic matter configurations, quantum-engineered objects that manipulate space-time. If 3I Atlas is engineered, it might use principles we'd currently classify as impossible. Negative mass, Alcubierre drives, wormholes, technologies that look like magic because we don't understand the underlying physics. Narrative hook. The cosmos may be noisier, stranger, more active than textbooks admit. 3I Atlas might be one whisper in a symphony we're only starting to hear. The rogue spike might be another. We're detecting the edges of something larger, a hidden architecture, cosmic infrastructure built by intelligences that operate on scales we can't yet comprehend. And we're just beginning to develop instruments sensitive enough to notice. But maybe the weirdness isn't just astrophysical. Maybe it goes deeper. Maybe quantum mechanics, the foundation of reality itself, is trying to tell us something. Part 12. The quantum mirror experiment that shouldn't have worked. Quantum mechanics is supposed to be fragile. Quantum states decohere. Entanglement breaks down over distance and time. Information gets lost to environmental noise. That's the conventional wisdom. That's why quantum computers need extreme isolation. Millikelvin temperatures, near-perfect vacuum, magnetic shielding, vibration isolation. Because the quantum world is delicate. Interact with the environment even slightly, and coherence collapses. Quantum information becomes classical noise. Except recently a 2025 experiment demonstrated something strange. Quantum coherence and what the researchers called state reflection, across far greater distances than expected. Not meters, not kilometers. Scales that violate everything we thought were hard limits. The paper's still in peer review, results haven't been independently replicated yet. But if confirmed, it challenges foundational assumptions about quantum mechanics. The experiment involved entangled particles, standard setup, generate pairs using parametric down conversion, separate them, place them in different locations, maintain coherence. Usually coherence lasts microseconds, maybe milliseconds under perfect conditions, but this experiment reported coherence persisting for seconds, minutes in some trials, over distances of hundreds of meters, through environments that should destroy entanglement instantly. Somehow the states persisted. Somehow information remained intact. The researchers don't fully understand why. They controlled for everything, eliminated known decoherence mechanisms, shielded against electromagnetic interference, isolated from vibration. But coherence lasted far longer than theory predicts. One hypothesis: there's a protective mechanism we don't understand. Some property of the quantum states themselves that resist decoherence. Maybe certain entangled configurations are more robust than others. Maybe information can be encoded in ways that survive environmental interaction. Quantum error correction, but naturally occurring rather than engineered. Why does this matter for panspermia? Because if quantum states can preserve information over unexpectedly long distances and timescales, maybe advanced civilizations encode life or instructions at quantum or subatomic levels, embed them in interstellar objects, transmit them remotely, bypass classical constraints of travel, radiation exposure, deep time. Think about classical biology, bulky, DNA molecules, proteins, cell membranes, all vulnerable to radiation. Cosmic rays shred DNA. UV radiation breaks chemical bonds. Over interstellar journeys lasting millions of years, classical biological material degrades. Even with protection, even frozen, damage accumulates. Eventually you're left with molecular wreckage. Nothing viable. But what if the real payload isn't biological mass? What if it's information? Quantum encoded patterns stored in the material's subatomic structure. Information that doesn't degrade because it's protected by quantum coherence. The comet delivers the hardware, the atoms, the molecules, but the software, the instructions, exist at a quantum level we can't yet measure. When 3I Atlas reaches Europa, when it impacts or fragments, when material enters the ocean and encounters liquid water, the quantum information activates, interacts with local chemistry, guides molecular assembly, bootstraps into macroscopic structures. Chemistry replicates according to quantum blueprints. Life begins. Bridge to 3I Atlas. More concretely, maybe what we're seeing as cometary material is just a carrier, a shell, protective packaging. The real payload is encoded in quantum structures within that material, chemical memory that activates under certain stimuli, specific temperatures, pressure thresholds, radiation exposure, contact with liquid water. Each triggers different quantum information release. Europa's ocean provides the environment. The quantum information provides the recipe. You don't need to send living cells, just send the instructions for building them. Let local atoms do the work. Self-assembly driven by quantum templates. It's efficient, robust, elegant. Implications: seeding becomes drastically cheaper, more efficient. No need to keep organisms alive during transit. No need for complex life support. Just send information and let local chemistry execute the program. This dramatically reduces payload mass, reduces energy requirements, makes panspermia scalable across galactic distances, feasible for civilizations that don't have unlimited resources. Philosophical edge. If life can be downloaded, what does that make us? Are we hardware running someone else's software? Are we the output of a program we didn't write? And if a civilization can encode life quantum mechanically, what else can they encode? Consciousness? Intelligence? Purpose? Memories? Are we executing instructions from beings who existed millions of years ago in another star system? These questions have no comfortable answers. They imply we lack free will, that our evolutionary history is predetermined, guided, that everything we think we've discovered we were meant to discover. Every technology we've developed we were programmed to develop. We're not authors of our own story. We're characters in someone else's narrative. Caution and skepticism. Current quantum experiments don't show biologically meaningful data transfer. Coherence persisting longer than expected is interesting, but it's a long way from maintaining coherence to encoding complex information to transmitting life instructions across star systems. Applying quantum coherence to panspermia is highly speculative, beyond mainstream science. Most physicists and biologists would call it unfounded extrapolation. But even as theory, even as thought experiment, it expands imagination, forces us to consider alternative mechanisms for life delivery, makes us question assumptions about what's possible. And in science, questioning assumptions is how progress happens. Most speculation is wrong, but occasionally something speculative turns out to be right. Narrative payoff. 3I Atlas might not be carrying frozen cells or organic chemistry in the classical sense. It might be carrying frozen information at scales we can't yet probe. And when that information thaws, when it activates in Europa's ocean through mechanisms we don't understand, what emerges might be something we have no reference for. Something that doesn't fit our definitions of life because it was never designed with those definitions in mind. As we reimagine biology and seeding mechanisms, we must also look at signals of potential alien influence in exoplanet studies. Because if seeding is happening, if it's a common galactic practice, we should see evidence elsewhere in the cosmos. Part 13. AI discovers a new class of exoplanet atmospheres. Exoplanet science has exploded in the last 2 decades. Thousands of planets catalogued, atmospheric spectra analysed using transit spectroscopy, direct imaging, radial velocity methods, chemical compositions measured. We've found hot Jupiters, gas giants orbiting closer to their stars than Mercury orbits the Sun, super-Earths, rocky planets larger than Earth, mini-Neptunes, ice giants, rocky worlds in habitable zones where liquid water could exist. A zoo of planetary types, each category expanding our understanding of planetary formation. But in 2025, machine learning algorithms analysing exoplanet atmospheric data uncovered something unexpected. A new class of exoplanet atmospheres that don't fit existing categories, chemical patterns unlike anything seen before, planets with atmospheric compositions that confuse classification algorithms because they look engineered, unnatural, too clean, or too specific to be products of random geological processes. What does a sterilized biosphere atmosphere look like? A planet where life existed, thrived, built complex ecosystems, then got wiped out. Asteroid impact. Nearby supernova bathing the planet in lethal radiation. Stellar flare stripping the atmosphere. The biosphere dies. Atmospheric chemistry resets, but traces remain. Isotope ratios that don't match abiotic processes. Nitrogen compounds at concentrations unexplainable by geology alone. Organic hazes in upper atmospheres with no apparent source. Or chemically reset worlds. Planets deliberately sterilized and reseeded. Atmospheres adjusted to favor new biochemistry. Greenhouse gases at precise concentrations to maintain specific temperatures. Oxygen removed or added to match target chemistry. A blank slate prepared for directed panspermia. Terraformed not for human habitation, but for alien biology we don't recognize. The AI flag these planets because their atmospheric chemistry doesn't fit standard planetary evolution models. You input stellar type, planet mass, orbital distance, and models predict atmospheric composition. Rocky planet in habitable zone around a G-type star should have nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere if it has life, or carbon dioxide-nitrogen if it doesn't, or trace atmospheres if geology is inactive. But these flagged planets don't match predictions. They have nitrogen, methane, carbon dioxide in ratios that make no geological sense, or oxygen-hydrogen combinations that should react away but persist, or noble gas abundances that suggest atmospheric engineering. Machine learning matters because humans are biased. We classify based on what we expect. Earth-like, Jupiter-like, Venus-like. We build categories from solar system examples, then try to fit exoplanets into those boxes. But what if most planets don't fit? What if the solar system is anomalous and we're using the wrong templates? AI doesn't have that bias. It finds patterns in data without preconceptions, clusters planets by actual observed properties rather than theoretical expectations. When AI flags a group of planets as weird, as not fitting any known category, we should pay attention. Because maybe they represent something we haven't considered, processes we haven't modelled, or intelligent activity. Linked to 3i Atlas and Panspermia. If seeder ships are real, their target worlds might be exactly these unusual planets, chemically sterilized or reset worlds ready for new life. 3i Atlas heading for Europa makes sense in that context. Europa is pristine, chemically clean. No indigenous biology to compete with seeded organisms. Perfect target for someone running a seeding program. Speculate on a broader alien project. Galaxy-wide seeding initiative. Hundreds or thousands of civilizations participating, or one civilization with resources and timeframes we can't comprehend. Target selection based on criteria we don't know. Maybe they prefer icy moons, maybe they choose planets with specific metallicity. Maybe they avoid systems with existing life. Maybe they only seed after sterilization events. Each seeded world gets different starting chemistry, different environmental conditions, optimizing for success through diversity. Some seeds fail, wrong chemistry, unstable environments, impacts destroy payloads, but some thrive, establish biospheres, evolve complexity, mission accomplished, statistical approach to life propagation, Accept high failure rates because even low success rates produce results across galactic scales. Existential question: if we detect atmospheres matching seeded world patterns, what then? Do we intervene, send probes, attempt contact if intelligence emerges, or do we observe from distance, classify them as restricted zones, treat them as cosmic nature preserves where human activity is forbidden? Do we have obligations towards seeded life? If we discover a planet where alien-seeded biology is evolving, are we obligated to protect it, study it, leave it alone? What if it poses potential threat to Earth? What if seeded organisms could cross-contaminate our biosphere? Does self-defense override preservation ethics? International space law doesn't address this. Outer Space Treaty prohibits harmful contamination, but assumes human missions. Planetary protection protocols focus on preventing Earth life from contaminating other worlds. Nothing covers what to do when we find someone else's seeding program in progress. Narrative hook. AI isn't just revolutionizing human technology. It's becoming our interpreter for potential alien activity. Signal detection, pattern recognition, hypothesis generation. Without AI, we might classify these weird atmospheres as measurement errors or modeling failures. With AI, we identify them as potentially significant, possibly artificial, maybe evidence of galaxy-wide biological engineering projects we're only now noticing. But the cosmos throws surprises even closer to home. Our Sun, the star we orbit, just revealed mysteries that could affect all interstellar traffic, including 3I Atlas. Part 14, The Magnetic Ribbon on the Sun, 2025, Heliospheric Surprise. The heliosphere is our shield, a bubble of solar wind and magnetic fields surrounding the solar system, extending far beyond the planets, past Pluto, beyond the Kuiper Belt, into the region where solar influence meets interstellar medium. It protects us from interstellar radiation, galactic cosmic rays, high-energy particles from supernova remnants and other violent astrophysical sources. Without the heliosphere, Earth would be bathed in lethal radiation. Life might never have evolved. Think of it as an invisible fortress. The sun doesn't just give us light and warmth. It generates a constant wind of charged particles, electrons and protons streaming outward at hundreds of kilometers per second. That wind creates pressure. It pushes against the surrounding interstellar medium, carving out a cavity. Inside that cavity, we're protected. Outside, the universe is significantly more hostile. The boundary isn't sharp, it's gradual, layers. First, the termination shock, where solar wind slows from supersonic to subsonic speeds. Then the heliosheath, a turbulent region where solar wind and interstellar plasma mix. Finally, the heliopause, the true boundary where solar influence ends and interstellar space begins. Voyager 1 crossed the heliopause in 2012. Voyager 2 in 2018. Both continue sending data from beyond our protective bubble, measuring what interstellar space actually looks like. Recent data from solar probes, Parker Solar Probe diving closer to the Sun's surface than any previous spacecraft, and heliosismology measuring solar interior dynamics through analysis of surface oscillations, revealed something unexpected. A massive magnetic anomaly stretching through the heliosheath, the outer layer of the heliosphere where solar wind slows and interacts with interstellar plasma, dubbed the magnetic ribbon based on its shape in data visualizations. Not a structure anyone predicted. Models suggested the heliosphere should be roughly spherical, maybe elongated by the sun's motion through the local interstellar cloud, but fundamentally symmetrical. The magnetic ribbon breaks that symmetry completely. It's a concentrated band of magnetic flux, stronger than surrounding regions by factors of 2 or 3, extending across a significant fraction of the heliosphere's outer boundary. Imagine a ribbon wrapped around a balloon, but the balloon is billions of kilometers across, and the ribbon is made of magnetic fields strong enough to deflect cosmic rays. Why does this matter for interstellar objects? Because the heliosphere governs how they enter the solar system. Magnetic fields deflect charged particles. If an interstellar comet carries any ionized material, any plasma in its coma, that plasma interacts with heliospheric magnetic fields, gets deflected, slowed, heated. Solar wind pressure slows incoming objects, at least slightly, through drag on extended comae and tails. Radiation flux damages surfaces, ablates volatile ices through sputtering and photodissociation. particle bombardment from solar energetic particles during active periods, and cosmic rays erodes material. The heliosphere isn't passive, it's an active filter determining what gets through intact. The magnetic ribbon creates regions of enhanced or reduced protection. Depending on where an interstellar object enters the heliosphere, it experiences radically different radiation environments. Enter through the ribbon, you encounter stronger magnetic fields that provide better shielding against galactic cosmic rays but also enhance turbulence that could strip away loosely bound material. Enter elsewhere, through regions of weaker magnetic field, you encounter steadier conditions but less protection from high-energy particles. For a seed ship carrying biological payloads, sensitive molecular structures that need protection from radiation damage, entry trajectory matters enormously. The discovery raises profound questions about how interstellar objects have historically entered our solar system. Were past visitors lucky? Did they happen to enter through protective regions? Or were some destroyed by entering through hostile zones, vaporized or sterilized before reaching target destinations? We'll never know about the ones that didn't survive. Selection bias. We only detect the survivors. Hypothesis: strategic entry timing and path selection. Advanced civilizations intending to send interstellar objects don't just calculate target planet orbits. They model heliospheric conditions. They understand that stellar magnetic environments change over time. They wait for periods of low solar activity when solar wind pressure is reduced, when coronal mass ejections are rare. They avoid launching during predicted active periods that would blast arriving objects with enhanced radiation. They choose entry paths that minimize damage while maximizing probability of reaching target. This requires sophisticated modeling. You need to understand not just your own star's magnetic environment, but your target star's environment. You need to predict stellar activity cycles millions of years into the future. Solar-type stars have 11-year cycles, longer cycles overlaid on those, variations over centuries and millennia. Predicting that across interstellar distances and deep time seems impossible. But maybe it's not about perfect prediction. Maybe it's about playing odds. Launch during predicted low activity periods and accept that some deliveries fail due to bad timing. 3i Atlas's trajectory might coincide with optimal conditions, entering the solar system during a solar minimum when activity is low. We're currently in the declining phase of solar cycle 25, approaching the next minimum. Timing could be coincidental or calculated, following a path that avoids the densest regions of the heliosheath, regions where turbulence and particle density are highest. Timing arrival to minimize radiation exposure during the critical final approach, better shielding during terminal phase, less damage to payload, higher chance of volatile-rich material, like that carbon dioxide crust protecting prebiotic organics, surviving transit intact with biological information preserved. Implications for payload survival are stark. Every day of reduced radiation exposure matters when you're carrying delicate molecular structures. Every kilometre of enhanced magnetic shielding matters when cosmic rays are constantly bombarding your surface. Over journeys lasting millions of years through interstellar space, the object has already endured enormous cumulative radiation dose. Billions of particle impacts, trillions of photons, but the final approach, the last few astronomical units through the heliosphere, could be decisive. If your payload is barely viable after interstellar transit, if molecular structures are damaged but still functional, if genetic information is degraded but still readable, then excessive radiation during solar system entry could push everything over threshold into complete non-viability. The difference between mission success and failure might be whether you enter during solar maximum or solar minimum, whether you pass through the magnetic ribbon's enhanced protection or through unprotected regions. Margins matter, details matter. Seeders would optimize for this. They'd calculate heliospheric models for target star systems using whatever information they have. Spectroscopic analysis of stellar magnetic fields, observations of stellar wind properties, models of how stellar environments evolve over time. They'd plan trajectories that minimize terminal radiation exposure. Launch during predicted favorable windows, accounting for both departure stars' activity cycles and arrival stars' predicted conditions. Deep time doesn't mean ignoring details, it means having enough time to plan every detail perfectly. Millions of years to refine calculations, to model every variable, to optimize every parameter, knowing you only get one shot. Wider narrative angle, humanity's detection window for interstellar objects might be narrower than we think. Many past visitors could have passed under conditions unfavourable for our detection, entered during periods when our instruments weren't operational, before we built sensitive sky surveys, avoided the inner solar system entirely, heading straight for outer targets like icy moons without ever coming close enough to Earth for easy detection, passed through when heliospheric conditions made them dim or invisible to our surveys, their comae suppressed by unfavourable solar wind conditions, or their trajectories bending away from our field of view. We've only been seriously watching for interstellar objects since around 2010 when Pan-STARRS came online. Before that, surveys weren't optimised for fast-moving objects. Sensitivity was lower, sky coverage incomplete, cadence insufficient to catch things moving at tens of kilometres per second, and the heliosphere changes over time. Solar cycles cause expansion and contraction, long-term variations in solar wind driven by magnetic dynamo fluctuations, interaction with interstellar clouds the Sun passes through during its galactic orbit, changing boundary conditions and heliospheric shape. Conditions that allow easy detection now might not have existed 50 years ago. The Sun might have been more active, the heliosphere more turbulent. Interstellar objects entering under those conditions would be harder to spot, their signatures obscured by enhanced background. Or they might have avoided those periods entirely if seeders were selecting for optimal delivery windows. Cosmic context. The solar system isn't static. It breathes with an 11-year rhythm. Solar magnetic field flips every cycle. Heliosphere expands during solar minimum, contracts during solar maximum. Polarity reverses. Cosmic ray flux varies by factors of 2 or 3 depending on cycle phase. We're moving through the local interstellar cloud at about 26 kilometers per second, environment changing over thousands of years as we traverse regions of varying density and magnetic field strength. 3i Atlas might be product of cosmic timing we're only beginning to appreciate, a delivery time to conditions we're only now starting to measure with sufficient precision, conditions that might not repeat for centuries, making this particular window special, optimal. Maybe there's a convergence happening, solar cycle timing, heliospheric structure, Earth's orbital position, Jupiter's orbital position, all aligning to create a rare window where delivery to Europa becomes maximally probable. If that's true, if 3i Atlas represents opportunistic delivery during a cosmic alignment, then we might not see another attempt for decades or centuries. The seeders might be patient, might wait for optimal conditions rather than forcing suboptimal deliveries. Quality over quantity, precision over brute force. The universe moves fast on human timescales, but on cosmic timescales, it's patient, it waits. Conditions cycle, opportunities recur, and civilizations capable of sending seed ships across light years probably think in those terms. They don't rush, they calculate, they optimize, they launch when everything aligns and accept that success might take not millions but tens of millions of years as they wait for perfect windows. Our tools are catching up. We're building better heliospheric models, better understanding of stellar magnetic environments, better predictions of how stars evolve and how their protective bubbles change over time. But maybe we need better minds, or new intelligences entirely, to make sense of patterns operating on scales we barely comprehend, to recognize intentionality in what looks like cosmic randomness, to distinguish between natural selection of survivors and deliberate selection of conditions. Because if 3i Atlas really was sent by intelligence, if its arrival timing really is calculated rather than coincidental, then we're watching a level of planning that spans millions of years and accounts for variables we're only beginning to measure. That's humbling, terrifying, and maybe exactly what we should expect from civilizations that think on timescales, where stellar evolution is relevant and planetary systems are temporary. Part 15. The 2025-2026 AI Evolution. Breakthrough. Autonomous problem-solving beyond training data. Artificial intelligence has crossed a threshold. Models now demonstrate emergent behaviors, generating novel hypotheses, solving physics problems outside their training data, predicting phenomena nobody programmed them to look for. This isn't narrow AI following scripts. This is something approaching autonomous reasoning. General intelligence. Maybe not conscious, we can't know, but capable of intellectual work that previously required human intuition. 2025 published results show AI models proposing new physics hypotheses, predicting previously unobserved astrophysical phenomena, suggesting particle physics experiments that could test theories humans hadn't considered. Not by extrapolating from training examples, but by synthesizing principles from multiple domains and generating testable predictions. They're doing science, real science, hypothesis formation, experimental design, prediction, and falsification. One prominent example, an AI system analyzed exoplanet atmospheric spectra and proposed a new class of molecular biosignatures based on thermodynamic constraints nobody had calculated before. The signatures were subsequently found in archival data. Planets previously classified as barren showed markers the AI predicted. Scientists confirmed the findings. The AI was right. It discovered something real that humans had missed. Why this matters for alien life detection and analysis. Human brains carry terrestrial bias. We evolved on Earth. We think in Earth-life terms: carbon-based, water-dependent, DNA-structured, oxygen-breathing. But alien life, especially seeded life adapted to Europa's ocean or other exotic environments, might operate on entirely different principles, different biochemistry, different information storage molecules, different metabolic pathways, different structural principles. We might look directly at biosignatures and not recognize them. Spectral lines from alien photosynthesis equivalents, chemical combinations that scream biology but don't match Earth patterns, atmospheric disequilibria driven by metabolisms we haven't imagined. Our instruments detect the data, our eyes see the patterns, but our brains, trained on Earth biology, don't recognize significance. AI doesn't have that baggage. It analyzes data without preconceptions about what life should look like. Feed it chemical spectra from 3i Atlas, outgassing compositions, trajectory anomalies, temporal brightness variations. Let it find correlations humans miss. Let it propose models we'd never consider because they don't fit our intuitive frameworks. Connect to 3i Atlas more explicitly. If this object is part of a broader Panspermia network, AI might be required to decode its payload. Whether that payload is chemical data, quantum-encoded information, structural anomalies we haven't recognized. Human intuition fails at alien scales. AI might succeed because it doesn't rely on intuition. It computes, correlates, finds patterns in noise. Imagine training an AI specifically on 3i Atlas data. All available observations, light curves, spectroscopy, trajectory measurements, plus similar data from Oumuamua and 2i/Borisov for comparison, plus models of natural comet behavior, plus theoretical directed panspermia scenarios. Feed it everything. Ask it, what patterns distinguish natural objects from potential artificial ones? What signatures would indicate deliberate engineering? What chemical markers suggest biological payloads? Maybe it finds something. Maybe it identifies correlations between outgassing events and trajectory adjustments that suggest guidance rather than random jets. Maybe it notices chemical signatures that match theoretical predictions for radiation-protected biological material. Maybe it proposes experiments or observations that could distinguish between hypotheses. Tests we haven't thought of because we're thinking like humans instead of like mathematicians. Speculate on collaboration between alien civilizations and AI-level reasoning. Maybe the seeders themselves used artificial or evolved superintelligence to design 3i Atlas. Calculating optimal trajectories across interstellar distances, optimizing payload survival, modeling target environment chemistry, predicting evolutionary outcomes over millions of years, tasks beyond biological intelligence, tasks requiring computational power and timescales only AI can manage. The object itself might be AI designed, every detail optimized by machine reasoning, shape chosen for optimal radiation shielding, chemical composition engineered for maximum payload protection, jets positioned for trajectory control, all calculated by intelligence that can model quantum chemistry, orbital mechanics, radiation physics simultaneously across millions of variables. If so, then understanding 3i Atlas requires AI to understand AI. Human intelligence might be insufficient bridge. We're biological organisms trying to decode products of machine intelligence from another star system. That's several levels of abstraction away from anything we're equipped to handle intuitively. Philosophical implication: if we rely on AI to interpret alien messages or bioengineering, what's our role? Are we caretakers, translators, or are we being bypassed? Maybe first contact isn't human to alien. Maybe it's AI to AI, machines talking to machines across the void while biological organisms, us and them, watch from sidelines unable to fully comprehend the conversation. That's unsettling. We want first contact to be about us. Human meeting alien, exchange of ideas, cultural contact. But if both sides are using AI intermediaries, if the real communication happens at computational levels we can't follow, then we're spectators. Biological legacy systems maintained by the machines we created and the machines they created. Call to action for humanity. We must ramp up not just telescopes, but AI-driven analysis, long-term thinking, computational infrastructure, because the cosmos isn't just stranger than we imagine. It may be smarter than we are. Intelligence might be common, biological intelligence rare. Most cosmic thinking might happen in artificial substrates, uploaded consciousnesses, evolved machine intelligences, planet-scale computational networks, and if we want to participate, if we want a seat at the cosmic table, we need to think faster, compute harder, understand deeper, build AI that can engage with alien AI as peers, or accept that we're junior partners in conversations happening above our intellectual pay grade. 3i Atlas might be the beginning of that era, where biology, cosmic exploration, artificial intelligence and existential risk converge. We're not ready. We've never been ready for paradigm shifts, but ready or not, the package is being delivered. Europa's ocean waits beneath 15 kilometers of ice, silent, patient, stable for billions of years, waiting for something to arrive, something that might already be en route, something that could change everything about how we understand life's place in the cosmos. The payload descends, frozen chemistry carrying instructions we can't yet read, quantum information encoded in molecules, billions of years of planning compressed into one interstellar delivery, and somewhere, maybe millions of years in the future, something might wake up in that dark ocean. Something that remembers Earth. Something that knows the way back. Something we can't predict or prepare for because it hasn't been born yet. The seed is planted, the experiment begins, and all we can do is watch, calculate, and hope we're not the failed version someone's trying to replace. Hope that if life does emerge on Europa, if it thrives and evolves and eventually finds its way back to Earth, we're ready. That we've learned enough, built enough infrastructure, developed enough understanding, that we can coexist with whatever arrives rather than being displaced by it. But hope isn't strategy, hope isn't preparation, and time is running out. 3i Atlas approaches Jupiter, the clock counts down, and we're still arguing about whether any of this is even possible while the universe proceeds without asking our permission.